What is up, everybody? My name is James DeFiore, and this is Casual Friday. Oh, this is our first time back in a week. We took the week off last week, various reasons. My Elon Musk internet has been spotty. My computer has been funny with Wi-Fi. This whole thing could collapse like a house of cards any second now. And that'll be okay, because that's what happens. I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about this because I know it's so inside baseball. It's so, you have to know the subliminals and understand the references in order to even make it make sense. But the Drake and Kendrick Lamar battle has been one of the weirdest hip hop battles of all time. I'm not sure if anyone even cares that listens to me. My hip hop shows, even though they're my favorite ones, don't get the highest listeners. Casual Friday does, to be honest with you. But I've been, in the scene since KRS-One battled Kool Moe Dee, since the Busy Bee battles and the bridge battles and Nas and Jay-Z and Biggie and Tupac, although that one got stupid, obviously, cost us a lot. And Eminem destroying everybody that he's ever battled. It's Pusha T, Drake. There's just so many interesting moments, and everyone thinks it's good for the culture, and so do I to a certain extent. I was never a fan of Drake. I actually thought his melodies were better than his rapping because he stopped rapping the way that he did years and years and years ago. So, and Kendrick Lamar is considered to be one of those huge hip-hop icons that is also actually a lyricist too, and there's only a handful of those, and Drake is not one of them, at least not in the tight backpack sense where it's almost conscious how amazing the lyrics are. Drake has a lot of pop shit too, although he does have some good songs that where it's lyrically amazing, but that's not what he's known for. He's known for commercial hits. And they did 3 songs each or whatever it was. More, I can't even remember. I lost count. But the one thing that I will say is that although I'm more of a Kendrick Lamar fan, if what Drake is saying in his last song is true, that he deliberately fed misinformation to Kendrick to put in his tracks, like having an 11-year-old daughter, if that's true, then I have to give it to Drake, even though I'm not a fan. When you puppeteer a person to diss you, and then you find out that my mother is talking too loud in the background, and she's deaf and she can't hear me. Hey, Mom, I'm on live now. That's okay. I love you. Yeah. yeah, she says. I have to give it to Drake, even though I'm not a fan. It is important to me that that what you're saying about the other person is either deliberately fantastical and obviously made up, or if you're saying it's a truth bomb, it has to be true. And if it's not, if it was planted there by your opponent, then I think you lost. And I'm not tired. I'm stoned, Marianne. There's a difference. I'm not actually tired at all. I'm not drinking tonight, and I smoked half a joint before coming on air to talk hip hop because that's what I do. David Wallace is about to arrive. He's already late. He's probably practicing dark arts somewhere in his attic. I'm just kidding. He's got kind of, I don't want to say bombshell, but he's got something that he can allude to a little bit that I think is going to, well, it's going to piss off a lot of people because I don't know how specific he's going to get. What I can say is that the material will be the subject of a soon-to-be published article in Press Progress, and I'll just leave it at that until David gets here. But it is something it's something that I want to be really careful with in how we talk about, because it involves people that I know and that I used to work with and things like that. And I don't want it to seem at all like I'm firing shots. I'm not. I just think it's interesting, and because I have intimate knowledge of certain aspects. And of course, the main source being David, who brought not just receipts, but like you could get these receipts registered at CSIS or what Snopes or something like that, whatever. And I think it speaks to. I'll say this. I think in Canada right now we have companies that have a difficult time, and I understand why, because I'm one of these people. I wouldn't call myself a company. I'm just the guy that hosts a podcast, but where we find ourselves in the middle of marketing plans. Like, and I don't mean in the middle of one, I mean outside of two marketing plans in this like no man's land in the middle that doesn't really have a marketing plan. It is really hard to be authentically and have your personal brand be considered neutral, like really neutral, like the way that journalism used to be, kind of thing, letting people talk, not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with them, but sort of staying even keeled the whole way, not trying to oversell it and stuff. It is really difficult to not to be like that if that's your authentic self, and I am like that, but it's hard to market because the way that things are now, everything being so polarized, marketing is sort of the same way. Well, who's your main target demographic? And if it's, convoy people, then you're not going to attract the left. And if it's Antifa people, then you're not going to attract the right. You have to sort of, plant a flag these days. And I think that some people are sort of semi-successful breaking out of that. I think that there's a lot of I think the American podcasters do it a lot better than we do in Canada. And I'll spare name dropping of who I'm thinking of because I just think that also causes people to overreact. It was how Joe Rogan, just to be honest with you, and I know that's going to trigger people into doing an automatic reply like fucking Joe Rogan. I know he's everyone's bro-pra in a lot of ways, but he did sort of pioneer this idea that you could just have conversations and it could be with anybody and that's fine. As much as he pisses off the left when he talks to, like, say, Jordan Peterson or something, I'm sure he pisses off the right when he talks to Bernie Sanders and praises him. So there's like that kind of vibe there. But when you do that and you're not authentic about it and you fail at doing that because you're not authentic, you will find yourself in a lot of trouble, and you will find yourself in a place where it is difficult to climb out of if you're seen as being not neutral and too in the tank. And I don't just mean with words. I think who you do business with reflects on your neutrality and your ability to sort of maintain a consistent personal brand to the public, as well as in the behind the scenes sort of machinations. Is that a word? Machinations? Do you remember that word? Machine-like, mechanical movements, whatever that's called, of your business end. Because the business end exists. It's real. Unless you want to just be a hobbyist, there is a business end and there is a public relations reality, even if you don't have a PR firm. And, I'm trying to be fair to people that don't have their finger on what their personal brand marketing should be when they don't want to be seen as shilling for either side. Because what often happens is that you find out that they end up doing things that is perceived to be shilling either for both or have contradictory sort of ways of looking at things because you attach business to the editorial. And so, and we'll see. I mean, like there's two sides to every story. So I am hopeful that stories like this don't destroy people who provide good journalism and good content. I worry that it will. And when, as I've been taking my sweet ass time getting back in the saddle, mostly because of tech stuff, I'm thinking about that a lot. I'm thinking about, will I still interview people like Christine Anderson? Yeah, why not? I'll interview Noam Chomsky again too. So there's the spectrum, if there ever was one. But I need to be careful not to, for business reasons, compromise what my stance or positions or, if I'm contradicting myself. As soon as I find out that my business end looks like it's contradicting my content as far as ethics go, then I'm out. I think it's something that you need to always keep in mind. Other than that, I've been following the Trump stuff. The Trump stuff has been as hilarious as you thought it would be. I think he's going to be president. I don't know how. I just do. I don't think, from what I understand, if he loses this case, the appeals process will clear him so that the election will happen before the appeal is heard. And apparently that is the loophole. The other trials won't start, or definitely won't be completed anyways. I don't think it's even two of them are even going to start before the next election. I don't think that the judge right now is going to throw him in prison. I think that everyone behind the scenes is sensitive that it could cause a civil war of sorts. And I think he's going to be president, because I think you can't run weekend at Bernie's candidate, Joe Biden. And I'm sorry if you like him, you shouldn't. He only looks good because you could put a rotting pastrami sandwich beside Trump, and you're like, that pastrami sandwich really, I like the cut of his jib, because it's Donald Trump. So this is 2016 all over again. The only thing that can save Donald or Joe Biden is the abortion issue. Now that's it. Trump will galvanize his base, and he'll make people, Americans that are in a higher tax bracket but tend to vote Democrat, but are like soft left or even like moderately conservative but hate Trump, don't think that Biden, is a viable candidate, because they feel that it's really the people behind the scenes that are running the show. So all that being said, back from his visit to hell in the middle of the dark arts section of the netherworld, my friend David Wallace. David, how are you, buddy?
Can't complain. How are you?
I'm okay. I like it that you have your kids' art in the background.
Always.
Yeah. See, and I like the artistic sort of abstract juxtaposition of pure wholesome art backdropping a political dark arts specialist. That's lovely.
Reformed dark arts specialist, I guess you would call it.
How's it going, buddy?
Well, got not feeling too well last fall. Things were picking up, a lot of stress, and had a setback. Had to go in and get some treatment, and was touch and go a few times. Then after that, I was afflicted with something called Bell's palsy. I've had
John Chrétien.
Yeah, I've had it before. First in 2012 when I was undergoing treatment for non-Hodgkin's follicular lymphoma, and once a few years ago, and this time was rather severe, and I couldn't communicate verbally very well. So that was one problem, and but hey, I'm moving along, and now the other side could be a bit crooked too, so it's all good.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. I was going to make a joke about how this isn't really Casual Friday content, but I thought it would be inappropriate. Just kidding, buddy.
Well, it is. It is.
I like your hair like this. I hate it when you wear it down. It bothers the shit out of me, because I know women are swooning and not listening to anything that we're saying. And I know men are always comparing you to like Fabio or soap opera actors. And I'm just like, it's very distracting. So this is better. Even that little string of hair you have coming down. Perfect.
Sorry.
Well done, sir. No, you just got rid of it. That's all you do. Put it back.
Put it back. How do you do that?
Take it back out from the
like that?
I guess. I don't know. Moment's over. Okay. So tell me, what's new? What's new? I don't know if you caught my intro or not.
No, I didn't. I was trying to get all plugged in my computer, and I don't agree sometimes.
Okay, well, let's see how close I was, since you didn't hear it. Please tell me in as much detail as you can. I alluded to a story that's coming out in Press Progress sometime in the next week, I would say, something like that. And then I left it at that. I didn't want to get into the gravy of it, because I know that, you don't want to scoop people or whatever. So what can you share with us, even if it's kind of vague? Just be as specific as you can and fire away.
Yeah, I'll be sufficiently vague simply because I promised that I would be. Mm-hmm. I've been watching these past few months, especially closely these past few weeks. And, well, I don't like what I see. I didn't like what I saw when certain people who were leading populist movements in this country some people may say out on the fringe, but these people who think they're being sent divinely to lead the people into a new Canada, a Canada that falls so a new nation can rise. That got my attention because I've seen that type before many times. And no good ever comes of it, so I decided to investigate the situation. So this story that's coming out will be a story of a wolf in sheep's clothing, and not just him, but his willing accomplices, which fall on all sides of the spectrum.
Is that coming from your house, that sound?
I believe it is, but I just got on the air. So if you give me a minute, I'll be right back.
Oh, no. It's okay. Like that was just a doorbell or something? Was that what it was? Okay. Well, David's going to go sort out the 1970s slightly out of tune horror movie score from whatever movie back then had a guy who had a mullet who was killed first. So we'll see what it's like when he gets back. I'm going to get him to be a little bit more specific. It can't be this vague. This is, overly vague. David didn't turn off his microphone. I'm trying to like cover for the noise because I don't know if he's fighting with anyone there. I don't know if there's arguments happening. If nice things are happening. Should we just listen? Let's just listen. Okay, so that's when he stops. I'll see if I can convince David. Why didn't I mute him? I'll see if I can convince David when he comes back to be specific regarding the goals, not just like take over the nation so a new nation can rise up. Like these specifics on how these people are literally plotting to do things that will disrupt all leadership. It looks like. And it's very, very compelling because you don't have to be some sort of conspiracy theorist or rocket science to sort of figure out the mathematics behind it because of the receipts that we obviously can't talk about. But I think the goal of these nefarious individuals, I'm hopeful David can talk a little bit more specifically about that and sort of name targets because it's funny how. And I tweeted something about this when there was a candidate for the Conservative Party that dropped out recently because of the way that Poilievre was handling candidates. And the way that Poilievre was handling candidates was that they were basically, rigging the leadership races, the candidate races in a certain riding. And every Conservative Party, even a progressive conservative here, in Alberta, it's like this. And federally, it's like this too. Whenever a new leadership thing happens, there's always a civil war inside the caucus and the executive, and then one team wins. But then whoever wins, they will then parachute candidates and then stack the deck for that candidate when multiple conservatives are running to be the candidate in a certain riding. And it happened to somebody else. And it's funny because it happens all the time. Like that is par for the course. If you remember, the Patrick Brown stuff was sort of like the highest level of backroom, backstabbing within party ranks, just doing it to themselves that I've ever seen in my life, because it was when Kathleen Wynne was on her way out and you were guaranteed to be premier, basically, whoever became leader. It was just, it was no doubt in everybody's mind. And so, David, I'm saying all this because what I find interesting about what's happening right now behind the scenes, and I'll be vague as well, is that it is still like another example of factions within the right side of the spectrum in this country that are killing each other. Because the irony is that they're always the ones to point at the left and say circular firing squad, because they always eat their own. Behind the scenes, conservatives eat their own far more than the left does. The left do it in public, which is stupid. But the right do it behind closed doors. That's their identity, basically, is it not?
It is. It is indeed. It's, the conservative movement at this moment is deeply divided, but not amongst the population, John Q. public, the voter public. It's divided from within, and it's divided along two lines. And that's religion. Religion is the crux we've seen the rise of evangelical. We've seen the rise of supposed morality. Most conservatives want a good education for their kids. They want to go to work. They want prosperity. They want economic drivers. They want growth. Those are real conservatives, and believe it or not, some do still exist. That's where the party needs to go. That's where the future lies. But just as the left is accused of having a lunatic fringe, the lunatic fringe on the right often exceeds this. They're given to following, what do they call them? They're Jesus-like figures. They're David Koresh's, those sort of people who have the answer. It's revolution. You ever notice it's always revolution with Mad Men?
Yeah, it's always like you want to reshape society, or and their favorite thing is to say they did it to Stephen Harper, they're doing it to Justin Trudeau. And when I say they did it to Stephen Harper, people who hate him were like, yeah, but he really was destroying the country. And when I say, oh, they do it against Justin Trudeau, people that hate him are like, but he really is destroying the country. And it's just like, no one's destroying the country. At least not the people that, I don't think the people that are in power are destroying the country. I think that we have bad leadership. And I think we have had bad leadership over my memory. When you have to say that Brian Mulroney was your last good prime minister, then that really says something about how bad your country is. I'm sorry, he did a few good things. Don't get me wrong, but really at the end of the day, our best prime minister in the last 40 years was the guy who smuggled back stuffed envelopes full of cash. Right. And that is a fact.
It was a VO whiskey box.
Yeah. I mean, Chrétien had his moments too, but there was a lot of corruption there as well. Ad scam, right? There's always something with these guys. It doesn't matter who it is. But to say that our society itself is about to crumble because of either of these people, I think that that's always a dangerous thing to do. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people who seek that. Sorry, I'm actually waving at mosquitoes. I'm not saying that there isn't a reason to try to preempt that from happening because of people's stated goals, like the people that we're kind of talking about. But we have to not say that the sky is falling when there's just a solar flare. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's look, the conservatives believe that all the attacks against Pierre are coming from left-leaning people, and that's not even true. I mean, there are powerful people, very powerful people, who are based in the United States of America and who are well represented here in Canada, in the Western provinces, whose very purpose for being active in grassroots Canadian politics is to destroy the conservative movement, because they believe that conservative movement has caved in over the decades on sexual education, on morality, that they've gone far too over the line and left-leaning. Most people view, on the other side of the border, Pierre Poilievre as being left-leaning. He doesn't go far enough as far as the evangelicals, the Seventh Days, the Plymouth Brethren, allegedly, people of that nature. They want.
Gee, which one is the most litigious?
Theocratic. Look at the quotes. They're coming out of the woodwork. You see the NFL player just the other day talking about how women should be happy, staying home, being baby factories, just firing them out one after the other, while her husband goes and smokes Marlboros, I guess, and drives a '57 Chev. I mean, did the clock stop somewhere? Did education somehow take a real dive since the last time I've looked closely?
It has. It's funny because we always talk about MAGA North and how Pierre Poilievre was bringing in Trumpian kind of strategies and how to communicate and what to say and who to talk to and who to rile up and all that stuff. And as much as that's true, we are, I think, experiencing a hybrid of that and a Tea Party moment in Canada, right? There's a lot of astroturfing.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of, and it's all astroturfing to be, how far right can you go? Because they're ripe for the pickings right now. So even if they did even if they become what they were in the United States, where I think it was like 18 people in the Senate at one point, for 18 Republicans in the Senate were Tea Party. So they couldn't get anything passed unless they had a Tea Party, support. And that's why a lot of things stalled actually in Obama's term, because they just weren't letting go. And so then the Republicans decided that they would never, ever vote for anything Obama did. Right now, that's, I think, what we're seeing. We're seeing a mix between that MAGA vibe and this idea that you can go farther to the right than Pierre Poilievre. And I don't think Pierre Poilievre is a deeply spiritual guy. I don't think that he embraces all of these social issues as if they were his own causes. But I think he knows how to play those people. And I also think that deep down inside, he's actually a neoconservative. If the United States get embroiled in some conflict in Asia or something like that, just say for argument's sake, or another one in the Middle East or Russia or whatever, we're going to war if Pierre Poilievre becomes president or prime minister, sorry.
Absolutely. It's the problem is that we've been manipulated on all ends of the political spectrum from afar for years. And the most egregious, which has to tie in with the press progress report that's coming with receipts.
Yeah, let's circle back to that when you're done.
But what I'll say is that it involves people who are extremely well positioned in terms of influence, who are actively working against the very people who put them in that position of influence. They are working against their own premier. They are working with, by tact approval, on an outside the bounds deal, attempting to work with, again, the word here is attempt, with the office of the PMO, and then attempting to work with yours truly. Why? Because this person wanted two very, very tippy-top people at the top of the Conservative Party to fall, even though their base is conservative, more conservative than I mean, these are the guys who carry around the Bibles and, you want you to have the 45 babies before you're 19. We're talking those people.
So you're saying that there is a far right-wing effort right now that is actively attempting to remove or somehow get Pierre Poilievre ousted from office in order to see if they can slide in an even farther right candidate before our next election?
Yep.
Wow. Can you give us anything else? Because I know the story, but I can't. I mean, you brought it to me, so it's not my story; it's yours, right? So
yeah, I can't. Unfortunately, they've been very honorable, and they've done the best job of any publication. Press Progress has thoroughly researched their stories, and once they vetted those stories and they determined that everything that they had and was expertly analyzed was legitimate, they proceeded with stories and they stood by them. They stood by them come hell or high water. So I felt that they deserved to get this one. Yeah. I've been working on it for a while, guys, and I think once it hits, you might understand a portion of my absence. But it's time to take people who are truly insane and the opportunists they may do business with, and it's time to eradicate them from the political landscape. And trust me, the right is coming after them just as hard as the left will, because these are the bastards that accelerate conflict and misunderstanding between all sides.
Yeah. And there's media companies have to be careful of who they align with behind the scenes these days, don't they? Yep. It is hard. I was saying this before you got on, that it's hard to really juggle the idea that you can be editorially principled and basically neutral, but then do things behind the scenes business-wise that could literally carry the water for groups that you might not want anyone knowing that you're trying to carry water for.
Yep.
That's a risky move, isn't it?
Risky. But look, we're in crazy times. I mean, the extremism on all sides of the equation has never been higher. And that's being driven very well, but it's not being driven from just within the country. You have to understand it's this is a movement, and this movement, you see it all over the globe. It's the slow creep, and now moving in unison. Um, they're going to come hell or high water, push their agenda through. That's their belief. I'm not saying that is true or not. What I'm saying is this is what these people believe. They profess to believe it. They are who they say they are.
Yeah, and there's and their ability to just be able to, team up with, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, like i.e. people from the left
Yep.
who hate Polyev. So the idea that you can.
Here's the thing: the people on the left didn't agree to any deal. Well, they did, sort of, but you'll see with the meat of the story what actually transpired. But hubris breeds over anxiousness, and the gentleman moved ahead anyways under his own presumption of having made a deal.
Yeah.
The actions were still meant that way. This was somebody professing a willingness to work against the conservative cause in Canada. I mean, you may not like who you elected as a leader, but hey, look, Pierre was elected the leader. That's the way it is, right? No matter which way it is. So at that moment, if you want to form a conservative government, then you move forward in unison. The bullshit and the squawking, that takes place before the top dog is settled. And then afterwards, you shoot your mouth off back rooms, but then you keep it shut when you're out front. Pierre's your guy. Yeah. Now, if you're going to destroy or try to tank him, what are you going to do? You're going to tank your party. That's not a conservative.
Yeah. I'm kind of laughing right now. Sorry, just to get off top for a second, because my poor son is like, we live in a forest, and if you open the door, 50 mosquitoes run into the house, right? And my son is just going crazy. Son, do you want to come over here for a second and just give Daddy a hug so that you can feel a little bit better?
Yeah. I'm turning on the fan.
Okay, you can turn on the fan, buddy. You all right?
Yeah.
Say hi.
Hi.
How you doing, buddy?
Hi.
How many mosquitoes have bitten you so far today?
I don't know. By the looks of the bumps on my skin, probably about like 15 at the least.
15? Well, you could do another 20. Do our species proud. We've killed trillions of those suckers. They've never killed one of us, except in places where disease is spread by them. But that's not here, right? Suck it up. Come on. Go kill those bastards.
I can't.
You can't. He just keeps on. I just keep on seeing my son do this. Just hitting himself in the head. All right, go do your thing, buddy. Anyways, I'm sure this is a riveting conversation for him to hear. Anyways,
yeah, probably.
He's in the backdrop playing video games, and I'm glad he's here. And I'm trying to be on my best behavior when my son's here. I don't think I've sworn even once. Right? There's a swear jar for every time I swear when I'm doing a podcast, so I'm always keenly aware of that. But back to the thing that makes me want to end everything. When this story comes out, it's a very difficult. It's not a very difficult story once you read it, because of the receipts and the type of source material that there is, which is basically irrefutable. Some people might have issues with context, and they'll have to try to explain that, right? But to see it really is tragic when the only sort of, whatever you want to call it, bipartisan activity you see is the backroom agreements to destroy a common enemy. Like that's where you're finding, people from both sides of the spectrum agree on something, is destroying other people in a way that is indicative of the hypocrisy that exists in
and a willingness to use me to do it. I mean,
yeah, but I mean,
too well with the conservative top shelf or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I did say some rather unfriendly things, so you would figure that I would be the last person that you'd want to deal with.
Yeah, well, you're that enigma, right? Like, you know, well, you are because you know often you're there, and this is what I find so compelling about your backstory is that again, you're probably the first political fixer ever to go public, and whose credibility, in a lot of ways, can't be questioned because you're basically confessing to the shit that you did with other people. Mm-hmm. So it's so unique like that because it's whistleblower stuff, but you're part of the crowd that you're blowing a whistle on, right? Yeah. In a sense. And then you know, they asked you to go too far and you were like, nah, with the Richard Marsh.
I'm not a kidnapper. I'm sorry. That's not.
Yeah. Me. And since then, you know, what's interesting is that even after that, you still talk to people behind the scenes. And as soon as it gets to a Richard Marsh sort of ethics level, you're like, all right, then I'm out. Yep. How long can you keep that up before people just decide not to talk to you anymore?
Well,
you know what I mean?
There are certain things that they can't get anyplace else. It's one of my ancient Chinese secrets. Sorry, I don't know. I don't mean that to be offensive. I didn't mean it literally. How should I say it? It's one of my.
I think the Chinese would be fine with that, by the way. Personally,
what's that?
I think the Chinese would be like, that's a good point. Like, whatever, they'd be fine with it, right? Yeah.
Look, if you go watch David Copperfield and he tells you how he does something, and you're not going to watch, you're not going to want to watch twice.
Yeah.
And then
but there's you know, it's funny that you and I have met, or at least sort of somewhat dealt with a lot of people that are really just people that crave being involved in something. Mm-hmm. You know, like Deb Joden was like that.
Yep.
You know, she just wanted to feel like she was in the thick of things, right? Like it did no loyalty. You know what I mean? It didn't matter what side she was playing for on the conservative civil war that constantly exists. She just wanted to be the person that made the news happen, right? There's a few people like that, and it's so funny. Yeah, but it's funny how many people you meet like that. Like, remember that one guy that was like the liberal, I forget his name, and it doesn't even matter. That was like the liberal caucus president of a certain riding. And he was lying to people and telling them that he was your book manager last year.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that guy? And he just was like, let's not say his name because the story is funnier anyways, and no one will know him anyways. But the one time when he's on the phone with me and he's just like, like the premise of the call was that he wanted the Klondike papers and he wanted us to just give them to him. So I called him and I was just like, yeah. I was like, I didn't care because it was already out there. He probably would have found a way to get. Yeah. But at the same time, I knew he was a fake. So I wanted to like ask for something in exchange for it that I knew he would not be able to provide in a million years, which was because he introduced himself to me as like, yeah, so like I'm really tight with Chrystia Freeland, you know? And I'm just like, oh yeah. And I knew he was lying, right? Because anyone that's tight with someone who's a cabinet minister, they don't walk around saying, you know, I'm really tight with this cabinet minister. They don't do that. They don't have to do that, right? Like that's not. Nope. So immediately, you know, it's like, so I'm like, so I call him and I say, listen, Chad, whatever his name was, I'll give you I'll send you the Klondike papers as soon as you confirm an interview with Chrystia Freeland on my podcast. And he says this, and this is also how I knew that it was like that he was bullshitting. He's like, I'll have my people call her people. And I'm just like, bitch, you don't have any people. like, stop talking. There's no people in your group, you know. But there's a lot of people like that, and they get used. Like Deb Joden got used, right? Like, yep. Or Jodan, whatever her name is. She got used, you know, like she was the buffer between the people, the campaign managers and the candidate and the scandal. She was the thing in between that absorbed all the hit.
Yep.
You have dealt with like countless people that are like that. How valuable are people like that? Like what's the ratio of useless to valuable?
They're the master key. They open any door. It's the little known staffer or the overworked district manager, mid-level management to lower level management. You work on resentment. You work on the sense of being invisible. You establish a rapport with these people. And once you establish that rapport, you go where you need to go. Maybe it's a middle-aged female. Maybe she's feeling unattractive. Maybe she's into politics because
Careful.
it's a social outlet for her. Maybe she's a lawyer. You never know.
Yeah.
So you work your way in. You start exchanging messages, and you basically you work your way in. And if she's in a position of authority, or it's a man, there's different ways too. You simply agree with his grievances. You chat it out. If he drinks, you meet. You have some beers. I mean, what you're going to be at this moment is an amateur psychologist. You're a guru, so to speak, and it gets you into the doors you need to get in, and then you make other connections the further up the line you go until you're into the safe and you got the goods.
Yeah, it's so funny how they don't know they're being used. Like those are the ones that I'm talking. I'm talking about the keeners, the ones that will remember the one the one that I have the most sort of like behind the scenes, like where I witnessed this sort of like super admiration for a candidate and a do anything for you kind of vibe was Patrick Brown.
Yeah,
But I know that exists all over the place, right? To a certain degree, it exists.
There were several. If you remember, there were several.
Yeah, but hidden, like embedded in those several, are people that totally turned on him when they saw another opportunity to become the shiny object, and get some attention, and then they just
get dump, right?
Yeah, and then they just get sort of handled.
Yep.
Right? They're like, you know what? You were super important. You just wait in the wings because one day we're going to come out for you again, and because you did such a good job. And then they sit there enamored for 1 year, 2 years, and sometimes they get called to do something else, like dropping off an envelope or making a phone call or falsely accusing somebody of something. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff. I always come back to this whenever I have you on, that if people really, really knew what went on in politics, like they think that they do, but if they really knew, I have, just on a minor scale, there's a minister in the progressive conservative government right now, and I have audio recording from like 2018 of him buying his seat in his riding. He sat down the other candidate and he said, "I'll give you $40,000 if you vacate this candidacy," which is completely illegal. You cannot do that, right? Like that is not how politics works. Right. That is literally the rawest form of corruption. I've never released it. I don't really know at this point what I could even do with it, but it was so normal. Like what I mean by that is it said the way that they were talking, it wasn't like you couldn't add a movie score and make it sound dramatic. It was literally like, I think 40,000 is more than fair. And that's more than fair. And then it was like, yeah, I see your point. Okay. And they did it.
These things are done all the time. I mean, payoffs come in many different ways, even alleged payoffs. Remember that one in the Patrick Brown, the alleged, where he was paid in points, airtime points?
I don't remember that.
Air miles. He was paid in air miles, I believe, for a house or something, or a mortgage. I don't know what it was. It was something. I mean, there's a lot of ways to launder your ill-gotten goods. I mean, that's it's easy. And,
like on a scale of of 0 to who was I just thinking of? We just learned about it all. Sorry, my mind has just gone blank. On a scale of 0 to to Doug Ford, Jesus Christ. Like that's how blind the brazenness. I mean, the brazen scale of not knowing you're being secretly recorded, selling a seat or trying to buy a seat for 40 grand versus publicly rigging the process to hand money over to developer wedding guests, which is literally the most brazen thing I've ever seen in politics.
Right.
Ever.
Right. It was covered every day at social media. Here you go. It's theft, corruption, graft. It's a rancid stew of bullshit right in front of everybody's face.
We're so stupid in this province. There's a bunch of armchair, and I guess I'm an armchair political analyst, right? But like, there's a bunch of armchair political analysts who don't think Poilievre has a chance of winning the 905. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We don't show up for elections in Ontario, and the people that do used to be progressives, and now they're hardcore right wingers because they want to they're finally active, and they're just going to go and vote. Doug Ford won with what, 34% of the voting?
That much?
It was like 32, 34, whatever it was.
It was pathetic.
Percent voter turnout. And so, you know, he won because more right wingers are voting right now. And if you don't think Pierre Poilievre can do well in the 905, you're not paying attention. You're really not. Like, this is, you know, it's that perfect storm. It's Trudeau's Kathleen Wynne light. Nobody will ever be as unpopular as Kathleen Wynne was. Like, that was her. She was polling at -6 probably. Like, it was, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't going to happen. No. That's why the conservative leadership was so corrupt, because everyone knew it was going to be a coronation. Whoever gets leader is the next premier. So Patrick Brown's ousted. The religious right prop up Doug Ford and king make him. And here we are. But the fact that you could just take it back, the fact that Doug Ford can do that clearly breaks several ethical laws and probably criminal laws as well. The fact that he could just be like, yeah, okay, I'll cancel the Greenbelt deal. Yeah, no harm, no foul. And just skate.
Because the game is rigged.
No, the people are lazy. And I'm not saying that we're not being fed. I'm not saying we're not being fed things that make us lazy. And I'm not saying that we're not being manipulated. And I'm not saying there's not disinformation or shit that we don't know about that goes behind the scene. I get all that. Apathy is real. But still, 65% that don't vote, the result of the election is on them. Oh, yeah. Even more than it's on the people that voted for Doug Ford. They're second bad. They're second worst. The people, like, if he gets reelected, I mean, like the first election, fine, whatever. Second election, you know, like, it was weak leadership on the other side.
But bought everybody. They've bought everybody up. I mean, do you think Bonnie Crombie is a liberal?
No.
Bonnie Crombie is an entrepreneur. And she will go where the money is, because, look, the worst that can come of it is she might be, made a mayor somewhere and had all the contracts swim her way to be spread out amongst the friends. She's about as liberal as Donald Trump is a Republican. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Donald Trump identified as a Democrat for years. These are opportunists. That's it. That's what they are.
It's funny because when I had Sherry DeNovo on the show, I was talking about Bonnie Crombie, and I said, you know, she's basically Doug Ford light. She's basically Doug Ford. It's what Sherry DeNovo said. And I kind of
listen. We can't slander the woman. She certainly looks a lot better than Doug Ford. So
she hasn't done quite as many scandals. She's had a few scandals of her own, though. Like,
I just even mean in appearance. I mean, she doesn't give off the. When you look at her, she does not look like somebody who is gonna sell you a car or maybe go collect for the guy that you owe some money to.
No, that's fair. That's fair. She's not his clone or anything. However, I think that Doug Ford would find her to be a most effective housing minister.
Oh yes, absolutely.
That's sort of what I mean, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't think they gambled correctly. I don't think that Ontario is going far right. I think that the people that vote are going far right. And the people that don't vote are messing it up for everybody else. You know, like this idea that 67% of us don't vote is deciding every single election, right? And it will continue to be that way. So, but Bonnie Crombie, I don't think that was a good choice. I think that they needed someone like a Nathaniel Erskine Smith to lead that party, someone who can stand up to his own government federally, but still hold principled stances on several issues. And I think that if he brought that to Ontario, I think that would have been a good thing. Most conservatives would probably consider him to be way too far left. I don't because I just find him to be someone who's willing to compromise, but not be compromised. You know, like I truly don't think that he's been corrupted. And And the cool thing about his time as a federal liberal is that I think he set a record for how many times he voted against his own government, which is why he probably doesn't make cabinet minister. And I did have that one problem with him once when he. I asked him a question. I said, "Do you think J.K. Rowling is transphobic?" And I do that often because I just want to know what people said. That's like 2 years ago I did that. I think I've asked that question once in the past year or whatever. But I asked him that a couple years ago, and he's like, "Well, I don't really know what she said, but absolutely she's transphobic." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." Like, that's awful. But other than that little hiccup, which is meaningless, I thought he would have been more ideal. Okay. Alberta. Let's go over stuff that we've already talked about in the past. About do you remember the public falling out that David Parker had with Danielle Smith?
Yeah.
In Alberta. What do you think that what if any was the residue of that? Because then it just disappeared. You never heard about it anymore.
No, there was and I speak on this with more than a hunch, as you'll see. I think there was a tacit approval, not approval, but a forced permission. I think that the premier was quite uncomfortable with going ahead and basically not issuing him the ultimatum right away, don't do this, or the bricks, hit the bricks. I think he preyed upon her in a certain way. I think he double-crossed her, for sure. That was a gambit, so to speak. It was a opening salvo meant to rattle a few cages. It was a threat to the Conservative Party. That's what that was.
You can expand on that.
Well, it's a belief in this movement, a belief that Mr. Parker is driving, that the Conservatives aren't conservative enough, and that, great, we'll help you get elected, but if you don't agree to every point and direction of our policy, then we're going to destroy you. Of course, that message went over like a lead brick or lead balloon, which has led to the lunacy of the past 6 months to a year, where people are calling for revolution and Canada to fail and a new nation rising in its place. It's these are dangerous words, and these are the words of either a madman or an absolute professional. All right.
What do you mean by that?
Madman, but he's a professional.
Yeah. I often think of people like Nick Cavalis. Because part of the reason, so maybe you and I can just sort of break down. Why do you think, I have an opinion on this. I'd love to hear your opinion on this though. Why do you think, what do you think the effect of polling is on voter turnout?
Polling is niche marketing. I think that it maximizes the number of people who pay attention to polls. Yeah. I think the vast majority don't even take notice.
Yeah, I think it's like half probably, but I think if you're I think there's ample evidence to show that Nick Cavalis owns a polling company. Is it Abacus that he owns? I don't remember.
I think it's something of that nature. He's good at what he does. He sees Ford. There was some sort of worry inside the Conservatives that they weren't going to do well if there was a good voter turnout. And then, funny enough, his pollster then is always farther, giving him a larger margin of victory than other polling companies by quite a lot sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think it helps foster apathy. I think people then sit at home and be like, oh, it's hopeless. And so many people think it's hopeless that what could have tipped the election away from Doug Ford didn't happen because such a large percentage were like, it's hopeless.
I think polling is completely detrimental to democracy. It's like this weird, like it's like it's like watching a trailer for a movie, but it has like spoilers all throughout. You know what I mean? Like
You can splice up the data any way you like it and edit it and throw it out there, and it's all about spin. So it's gone from I mean, look, we're in the age of social media. We're in the age of get it out there, get engagement, get clicks, and accurate numbers don't always sell because they're boring. But if you can convince somebody that something's already over, then, like you said, apathy kicks in. And apathy is the greatest tool of a government that is looking to smother democracy, like Doug
Oh,
Ford's
yeah.
government did so effectively leading up to the last election.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm so happy I'm not in politics, like running. I don't think I could stomach what goes on behind the scenes, because you know how difficult it is to be like, you have to be you have to be such a disciplined personality in the actual work in order to just block out and to deflect all of these possible pitfalls in the form of, like, there's always people trying to like the Nenshi thing, trying to like entrap somebody into being seen as corrupt, right? The temptations of just abusing the office that some people probably have.
You don't
There's
walk on the lot unless you want to buy, right? You can set up a scenario, but at the end of the day, these people who claim they're as pure as the driven snow and were tricked or whatever, you don't walk on the lot unless you're coming to buy. And everybody knows who I am. And the people who recommended me to you told you exactly who I am. And that's why I was referral only. Ain't no bullshit coming from this end.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's I'm so sort of jaded now. I know, like, that sounds ridiculous. Like, it's been really corrupt and bad for a really long time. But the more I learn, I guess I'll say, the more I'm just so appalled. I'm just appalled by all of it. Because it is also because of the, how they always talk about cops that are bad cops, but really the good cops that turn a blind eye to the bad cops are also bad cops. They're just like less bad, I guess.
It's a perfect metaphor for society. I mean, look, and it's not just politicians. It's our judiciary. It's our policing at the brass management level. These people are all politicians one way or the other, and they're all beholden to special interest of one sort or another.
Yeah.
The book, which was going to be launched, which I wanted to address while I was sick, 3 other parties stepped forward with proposed libel lawsuits against me. Literally, we made every effort to prove that the material they claimed would be in the book was not in the book. And the other family from Ontario, we excised over 120 pages of this. I've refunded thousands of dollars. I think I'm over 4,000 refunds back now. But we are working on a digital download, which might be ready by the end of next week, probably before. And that would be sent to whoever in lieu. And then the new printing of the edited and shortened book with a few relevant facts out will be available probably 2-3 weeks after that. I'm printing them basically one at a time as I can afford to. But we're getting there, and you will get them out. You will get everything you paid for. And I'm hoping this week we'll be able to add another chapter to some upcoming projects, because this is a big one, folks. This is the story about somebody who I believe, with good reason, to be acting with people across the border to come in here and incite total anarchy on the right and left side. This is a flamethrower. This is somebody who is bringing in a movement, we'll call it. And these people, this movement, they're not just after Justin Trudeau. Again, people think Pierre is catering to these people. Well, maybe he is to a certain degree. You sell to your market. But they don't see him as one of them.
Yeah.
They could never see him as one of them. He, as far as he is, believe it, he doesn't go half as far as people such as Mr. Parker need him to go to consider this a godly coming administration.
Yeah.
David
Wallace, we'll talk, and we'll have you on again next week. Okay, buddy?
Absolutely, guys. You guys have a great night.
You too, buddy. That was David Wallace. I know. It's a lot of vague stuff, but I've seen the receipts. There's I don't even know how I feel about it. I find it troubling that I know that it's true, and I know that's a big tease, and I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to scoop Press Progress. So they're gonna do their thing, and you guys will see it soon. And a lot of you will be like, "Wow, okay, this is crazy." And then you have to hear the other side, and you have to figure out, how you feel about it. Because my son is getting eaten by mosquitoes, I'm going to end the show now. I know that Paul Atkinson was going to stop by. I'm going to end it now, though. I'm also getting eaten alive. And I don't want to keep on grabbing at mosquitoes. But I think that was an informative hour and a bit with David Wallace. We'll be back next week. I'm also interviewing Alka Pradhan. She's the human rights attorney for detainees at Gitmo, and she just released, she just wrote a briefing for, I believe it was the Supreme Court, Federal Supreme Court in the United States, about detainee treatment by the American military at Gitmo. And so she's going to be on. She can't obviously publish the brief because it's in front of the Supreme Court, but she's able to talk about it, and it's pretty amazing stuff. She's tireless. She's been doing this for 2 decades, and it's amazing how certain types of legal experts and human rights lawyers, they don't get enough praise, for the work that they do, and it's not always, saying that the person that's in the prison is some sort of hero. It's largely about how can a democracy actually treat human beings like this and get away with it for so long. So it's a tribute to the kind of courage that you have to show, because also it's really tough to get a job often in certain circles, like in Washington, D.C. and other places, when you do this kind of work. So she deserves a lot of praise, and I think you guys will just find it and find the interview to be interesting. I interviewed her about a year ago now, and it was really compelling. So anyways, we will see you next time on Black Bolt. Thanks, everybody.
Black Bolt. Black Bolt. Black Bolt. Black Bolt. Black Bolt.